Welcome to the Copy Talk podcast. Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member, FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Financial planning services through Lighthouse Financial, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Shannon Ross is CEO and managing partner of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse and Cambridge are not affiliated. And now, here's your host, Shannon Ross.
Welcome, everybody, back to Copy Talk. We are back in the studio. It's been 2 weeks for us, so it does. We were on a little hiatus. We had some pre-recordings rolling while we were out. We were on spring break, and we got our bestie trip in.
We did.
So we are back. Oh. It was wonderful. We went to Scottsdale, Arizona. The resort was great. The weather was great. The shopping was great. All the things.
Sorry, Ryan's giving me instructions.
I'm
not going to let him get away with that. He's talking to me over there, and he's like, talking to your microphone. Like, what?
She's out of practice.
I know.
It's been a couple weeks.
God, I'm sorry. I know. Thank you, Ryan, for
You had a birthday.
Me.
Happy belated
I
birthday.
Did. Yeah, I turned 25.
That's right.
Yes. Thank you. We had a great time.
We did. We had so much fun. We didn't get in any trouble, really.
We never get in trouble.
I know. Well, but I feel like some of the stories that we make, our husbands don't necessarily appreciate, and I feel like we did not have any of those stories, really. So I might have, one, but I think it was so fun. It was so much fun.
It was so much fun. I love Scottsdale. I'm now a fan. Am I doing this
Fan
right?
of the desert.
I'm sorry, I just had to. I had to do it. Okay. I love it. And now I understand why people move there. I understand retirees and snowbirds.
Especially this time of year.
It's lush. It's beautiful. They have flowers, and their flowers look fake. Like
they're so nice. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. I didn't expect it because I think desert, and I've never been.
Yeah.
And it was hot, and there was no wind, and we had a blast. I just want to go back.
I know. It was so fun because it's my old hood, so we lived there almost a decade before we moved to Colorado. So it was fun to kind of look at all and it hasn't changed that much, which is, I think, encouraging. But yeah, we had fun. And it was a 12-hour drive. She drove the whole way there and back. You were a beast. So it was awesome.
I like to drive. She hates to drive.
I don't like to drive.
I just like, so I chauffeur.
So it was good.
I enjoy it.
It was good.
Yeah, it was a good time.
And this week kicks off the Masters.
You stole my glory. I'm the sports girl.
I like the Masters because it reminds me of spring. Not so. I like golf, but
I love golf. I can't play golf, but I love to watch golf. And more importantly, the only reason that Masters is even excited this week is because Tiger Woods is playing.
Yes, you're a big Tiger Woods fan.
I am so excited. I am a Tiger Woods fan. I am clapping for him on the course. I am misty-eyed. It's on my bucket list to get to Augusta National, first of all. And if I would give my left arm to be at Augusta National this week to watch Tiger Woods. It's on my bucket list. I'm hoping.
Good to know.
I know. So anyway, so it's going to be an exciting weekend.
It is. It's a good sport week. MLB starts
kick
tonight.
Off this weekend.
So it's all the things.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Spring games this month, college. I know. I'm in my sports happy place. I could talk sports this entire show, but I'm not going to because we're going to talk about interest rates and credit scores and inflation.
Because it's a finance show.
I know.
So
we kind of have to.
Ryan, you should invite April as a special guest to your sports show. I think she would be a good add to your audience.
Do that.
Pull in some female
I would
viewership.
totally do that. That's like like a sports talk show. Count me in.
I always think of different like ESPN correspondents I see. I'm like, April could do better than them.
Oh, well, not better. But I would. That's like my happy place. I love sports.
You would kill it. Well, we're not. I know that you think they're boring topics that we're going to approach a little bit today.
I actually don't.
But they're hitting all of our lives at such a aggressive clip that when I was thinking of April and getting back, what I wanted to talk about, because everywhere we turn right now, we are faced with off the charts inflation. Interest rates are rising like crazy. The supply chain problems are still in effect. There's the war with Russia and Ukraine hiking all of our gas prices up. It's everywhere you turn right now. Yeah. We feel a little boxed in.
Yeah.
So I thought that these next few shows, it would be important to tackle these topics because whenever we feel boxed in, there's always some things you can be doing, though, to take and look for an opportunity, even when the vice is tightening a little bit. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. And what's interesting is in the spring of last year, we did a show called Inflation Nation. And we're going to call this series Inflation Nation 2022 because it is, I think it's comical that we were talking about inflation when there was hardly any of it last year.
Yeah.
Not knowing where we'd be a year later, being at the highest inflation rates in over 40 years.
Right.
And hovering around 8%. So what's going on that we're going to talk through today is why do interest rates matter? Because as you're hearing, if you watch any news report, if it's even in social media feeds now because of just how prevalent it is, the Fed met on March 17th. They did a quarter of a point interest rate hike to make it 0.4 in the federal funds rate. We'll explain what that is. But they're starting to make adjustments. And there's a lot of predictions that they will make a raise adjustment in the next 5 of meetings that they have this year.
Okay.
They haven't been this active raising rates since 1994. They overcorrected in that environment. So I think they have a lot more historical, data at their fingertips, but we can expect interest rates to continue be on the rise. Because why are they doing that? Because they're trying to get a handle on the inflation problem, because that's the really coming out of the pandemic and now the stimulus packages and that shortages and supply chain problems and now the war. Inflation is the biggest monster to head off at the pass. And a lot of economists are predicting by the end of the year, by the end of 2022, that inflation will be down closer to the 3% mark, which is what is expected,
Sure.
Which we would all appreciate given the gas prices that we don't really know until the war is situated where they're going to go.
When we left Scottsdale that morning, we paid $5.59 a gallon.
Yeah. We're like, what? I mean, it was.
We never paid below $4.60 something the entire trip.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah. Yep. It was
so. It's worse in some places even than others. So that's what we're going to talk through today, but also how we're going to tie it in and how it relates to what we can do about it. Is I want throughout this show, it's time to get a handle to know what you have. Because when interest rates start to go up, it impacts every single financial instrument you have. So you need to know, what products do I have, like a mortgage or a car loan? What products do I have are fixed?
Right.
What products are adjustable? Because those adjustable products, which is probably the majority of loans that you have, be very mindful and watchful on what dollars you take out of those adjustable products, or if you need a new car, how to finance it, or what have you, or a new house even, because these interest rate hikes, it's going to cost you a lot more money to borrow money in the foreseeable future.
Well, and I think for across, cars, homes, but if you have revolving debt on a credit card right now, you need to start researching 0%.
That's right.
ASAP now and get it moved and at a 0% for. There's 21-month offers out there.
Yeah.
It's. I know it sounds cumbersome, but it's easy
to
do.
Worth it.
It's worth it because you're going to pay a lot on that revolving debt if you can't pay off the balance.
Absolutely, and what we're going to focus on the next 2 weeks after today's show is to talk through, like, why do good credit scores matter? How are they calculated? How to improve your credit score if you have some work to do there? Because if your credit score saves you or could cost you, there's a swing of between 20 to 120% plus of how much money costs you to borrow based on your credit score. And credit scores, which is interesting, has become more and more of an item. You get a credit check now on a job application, on a rental application.
Right.
It's not just, car loans or mortgages anymore.
Right.
It touches your every aspect of your life.
Right.
And I know we've talked about on this show a lot of other advisors out there who have the argument to not borrow money, to not even care about your credit score. And I want to caution people on that. There's people out there that I really admire how they teach people how to build up emergency funds, how to get out of debt.
Right.
Very, very great teachings.
Right.
You need a good credit score because now that it impacts so many areas of your life that so many people look at it, you have to have a good credit score or you're going to be costing yourself job opportunities, extra money paid in interest rates, a lot of things.
Well, I think so. Some of those teachings that came out many, many, many years ago, and I'm sure that philosophy is still held by some, but a lot of those really launched years ago. In my early 20s is when I remember it, the Dave Ramsey stuff, which I did the course, and we got out of debt using it. But I think back there wasn't as yes, your credit score has always been emphasized, but it was not necessarily ran when you were applying for a job.
Yeah.
I mean, it was never, I don't remember that.
I don't either. Or apartment applications or anything.
No.
Well, apartment applications maybe, but jobs, absolutely not.
No. And so now, I don't know if their philosophies have changed, but I would be surprised if they hadn't adjusted their philosophies somewhat.
Sure.
Just based on the need for a better credit score. Now, I mean, right now you'll pay, I was reading through some of the research, 20% more for a car.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a lower credit score.
Yeah.
20%.
I know.
That's a lot.
And used car prices right now are already off the charts.
Oh, they're already off the charts.
So it's a tricky financial environment. And I know I'm not telling you all out there anything new because you're seeing it everywhere you go, every time you get gas, every time you get groceries. We have so many friends, I think even in this room, who everyone I know that rents, even their rent is going up $300-$400 just because of the markup out there. And I do want to say, I'm gonna give you guys some tidbits in a minute about the whole interest rate and how the Fed, it starts with the Fed and then this domino effect. There are opportunists out there because they're not directly linked. Right. So like mortgage rates, car loan rates, they're not directly linked necessarily to the Fed hiking interest rates. They take that opportunity. It's very gray area. And so it's important if you are in the market for a new house, for a new car, shop around because there are opportunists out there. Just because they can, they will. Yeah. Just to give you a heads up. So for instance, mortgage interest rates right now, I know a lot of you out there probably refied your mortgages in the last year. Thank God that you did because you got 30-year fixed rates in the 2s. I just pulled the rates this morning. Average 30-year fixed right now is 5.6%.
That's
5.6%. It's almost doubled in 6 months. Yeah. Which is just insane to me. And then car loans I pulled, you saw 0% financing, 1-2% easy 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. Now, even with favorable credit scores, you're looking in the 4.5%. Over 5% in most of these scenarios.
Wow.
So again, you need to shop around because all of these different banking institutions, they're all going at it a little bit differently. I have found rates at regional banks to be a little bit more competitive than the big national banks.
That's what I was reading. Yeah.
And I've historically done more business with regional banks because of those kind of things. Mm-hmm. But it's just off the chart right now. So you have to be more intentional and diligent or you're going to be in an even less favorable predicament. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit because, we all watch the news and we're like, oh, yeah, the Fed. What is the Fed? We all know, kind of it, but we don't really know what it does. And the Federal Reserve is, something that this country has built and provided regulatory provisions out of to try to secure our country so that things that really tanked and created the Great Depression have a less likely probability to ever happen again. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these rules and regulations came out of the stock crash in the 1920s that generated the Great Depression. So one of the things why the Fed meets, one of the reasons why it looks at interest rates is because when it raises the Fed rate, it's talking about by raising its federal funds rate. And what that is, it's the rate that banks charge each other in their overnight loans. And why they need to have overnight loans is out of the stock crashes of 1929, banks had no requirement to keep a certain amount of cash on hand to match their deposits. Mm-hmm. So what happened is people had money in the bank, they went to go withdraw it, there was no money. Hence losses of fortunes and the stock market crash and all of those catastrophic things. So out of that, the Federal Reserve created requirements that every night a bank has to have a certain amount of cash on hand based on the deposits they took in that day. Mm-hmm. And so if a bank's short, they can borrow from another bank, they can borrow from the Federal Reserve. They can do these things, and they happen every day. So when the Fed raises rates, they raise on that interest rate that banks charge one another, that the Fed will charge a bank. And so then it kind of sets off, like I said, that domino effect that either directly or indirectly, a number of borrowing costs for all of us tend to go up because it's costing banks more money, so they charge us more money, not in proportion. Right. You know, if they get 0.25%, you look at mortgage. Mortgage rates have not raised 0.25%. We're looking at double. Yeah. So obviously there's a lot of things that have been, I think there could stand some more regulation on, to be honest, just to say, what makes you think that you can charge double? Because the market drives it. It will, it'll take it. You don't have an option, but shop around, because there are some people that I think still give good deals out there and are not on the more optimistic
and why they're doing this, if they want to if they want to drive up the borrowing costs for us, they're essentially, this will slow down the demand for the goods.
That's right.
And taps the brake on inflation.
That's what the Fed is trying to accomplish.
That's what they want to try to do. Slow down.
And then there's other banks that want to gouge you.
Yeah. Well,
because they can make a profit. Yeah. So there's a lot, you just have to do your homework of, and shop around. Mm-hmm. If you're out there in the home market, in the car market, credit cards, obviously they are very closely linked to the Fed moves. The average rate for revolving credit is 16.44%. For card holders today. By the end of the year, I mean, now that it's going to up, not that 16.44% is an insane number. It's a lot. But that will continue to tick up. So whatever you can do
at 29%
to move those balances, pay off those balances, those balances are going to start costing you double, triple the amount to float them.
Well, and I think I can speak to this because when years ago when David and I were in a whole lot of credit card debt, this was one of the first things I did. And it's not fun. And it is, I mean, it can be time consuming, but go to Google, type in 0% credit cards, because this is one of the things I learned when we were taking that course. Go to Google, type 0% in. There are a lot of offers out there. And then you just start transferring those. Don't ignore it. The worst thing you can do is just put your head in the sand, and then you're going to see 29. You could see upwards of 29%. Yeah. I remember some of ours got that high. That is a snowball effect that you're never going to conquer.
Right.
I don't want to say never. That's probably not polite. But it's going to be hard once that snowball. If you're not paying off the balance, that revolving credit, if you're paying the minimum amount, you're losing.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up paying an astronomical amount for whatever it is that you put on that credit card. So take the time to do it. It's not that hard.
Once you guys put it on the 0% financing card, what other kind of disciplines did you guys find helpful to start to really pay that down and off ultimately?
I mean, we did the whole cash in an envelope sort of thing. We developed our emergency fund, but I mean, it was coupon clipping. I mean, that's when you actually clipped coupons out of the little magazines. I did that all the time. Such a pain in the rear.
Did you have one of those like accordion folders?
I sure did. Listen, when you are broke.
Yeah, I get it. Totally.
When you are broke, I mean, I got a whole lot of satisfaction. I'm like, I say, like your receipt's this long and everybody in line hates you, right? Because I'm that one I'm going through A, B, C, D, and I'm pulling out all the things.
Yeah.
But that was it drove David crazy because I came home with, I had 3 boxes of Crest toothpaste because that was the only way you got the deal. But I saved a crazy amount of money where I got like the off-brand mac and cheese, which is apparently a no-go. It's got to be Kraft.
Or the off-brand cereal.
I'm like, listen, do we want to pay our light bill this month? You're eating the good family friend, whatever the Walmart brand was. I don't remember the time. So that was huge. And the 0%, moving to 0%, obviously trying to negotiate ways to get some things down. Moving to 0% cards was the only way we eventually got out, period. It's not that we made more money. Sure, we eventually did. We were broke for years because we had so much credit card debt.
Yeah.
Moving to 0% cards, I would say, is the number one way that we finally dug ourselves out of so much debt. And it's not fun, but I tracked when that 0%
that was my next question. How did you know when it expired?
I paid attention.
Okay.
I watched it. I knew how long. I mean, I had everything, written out. I didn't spreadsheet it like you do because I'm not that fancy, but I had everything written out and I would track it. And then when it was getting close, moved it to another 0% card. I mean, the first goal was to find the longest 0%. But sometimes you can only get 0% for 6 months. So I'm watching it for 6 months and I move it. You can always move those balances. There is a small fee based on your balance, but compared to what you're paying in the percentage cost of keeping on a revolving credit at 16 whatever percent versus 0%, you paid a small fee to move it over. Who cares?
Do you find that because during this time, I don't know where your credit score was. I'm not asking what it was specifically,
I don't know what it was.
But you would think it was not great, right? So you were still able, though, to get approved for a 0% with a questionable credit score. Okay.
It was definitely questionable. And it was, I had, I maybe didn't get maybe it was offered at 21 months, but I only got approved for 8 to 10 because of my credit score. Okay. Great.
Sure. You made it work. Whatever you could get.
I mean, I hustled and we had a lot of credit card debt. This wasn't just like, oh, you had one that was cute. No, we had a lot of credit card debt on multiple cards. Okay. So it was like a chess game. But
did you consolidate the cards down over time?
Yeah. Well, some of them I could move multiple balances to one card at 0%. Okay. So that was an option, depending upon what the credit limit was. Okay. So yes, it takes a little bit of research and some finagling, but it's not as, it sounds overwhelming. It's not as overwhelming as you think it's going to be. And I will say, once I started doing that, I felt so empowered just by that one step, by consolidating some, moving over. And it was like, then we'd get down to 3 cards, and then I would try to do those and consolidate down to 2 at 0%. Okay. Finally, we got down to that one card. I remember when we paid off that last credit card down on that one card, and it was... And we
I bet.
We're not making a lot of money at the time. I mean, it was a lot of work. But that's how much of a difference it makes. It was huge. But obviously worth it.
Oh, gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so, we want to highlight because, let's talk through a little bit of just to, again, remind people what are the areas you need to do some homework maybe this week to look at what debt is adjustable. What debts do you have in your life that are adjustable? Gone are the refi days, so no one should be, I'd be shocked if anyone can refi anything right now because of where you're at. And those who, I'm going to talk also those 2 home equity lines of credit right now.
I was just about to bring that up because I just got one.
Because people are used to that, hey, they borrow off their Heloc. It's no big deal. It's almost like a 0% loan that they remodel a bathroom, that they even, you shouldn't do this, but you take a trip or, they use it for different things that it's not built for. It's basically should be used for home improvement. Yep. But what do we know about the home improvement right now? Inflation on building materials right now
cost of goods
is almost double.
Right.
And so lumber's come down a little bit. It's a little, approaching, but now appliances or, finishes, trim, those kind of things. Delay. If you can delay doing these projects, you will save 30-40%.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Because you're going to pay double right now. Yeah. And then the money you're taking out
on a loan
is also going to be at a high markup. So with HELOCs, my advice is if you can hold on, wait.
If you have one, great.
If you have one, it's not. It doesn't cost you anything if you don't use it. It's all about because all of that is adjustable, and they adjust every day. Yep. So it's not like you take it out and I took it out. It was this interest rate. Some fix when you take it out, some do not.
Yeah.
So you have to look at the fine print. Yep. But because of so many people, when they refied in the past 6 months, they refied their current mortgage and then they got HELOCs. So now everyone thinks it's free money. Because in the last 12 to 18 months, it didn't cost you that much to borrow from a HELOC because interest rates were low. Now it's going to cost you a lot more. And typically people borrow higher balances out of a HELOC. Right. Because projects aren't $1,000. They're usually at least 10 30, 50, Yep. So I just want to caution everybody, know how your HELOC works. Because every dollar you borrow out of it is going to start costing you more and more. And you could find yourself similar to having a credit card problem in your HELOC.
Absolutely.
And your home is collateralized on that. Right. So it can get real tricky real quick. So you want to make sure you're practicing some discipline there.
Well, and if you have a HELOC, because we just signed on one, a couple weeks ago, because we have some home projects that we want to do. Now, we've put the brakes on that because I'm not paying double to redo my kitchen.
Because you won't get that when you sell the house either.
Yeah. But that said, he did, and this was the way my Heloc is designed.
Yeah.
If you have a Heloc and you're like, well, maybe somebody's needing to redo their bathroom because they absolutely have to. Let's just pretend there's some absolutes out there. Make sure there are some Helocs, which is the way mine was designed. If you need to pull money out, if this is a need, pull it out now and lock it in at that interest rate. Because where your Heloc sits now, it is going to fluctuate. But there are many, including that it is going to be fixed when you pull it out. So if it's an absolute and you're needing to pull $10,000 out, pull it out right now and lock it in before it just continues to go up. That was the advice from our banker that got our Heloc for us, was to lock it in if we don't need to. But
if you absolutely have to do it.
Have to. We don't
I think
need to redo anything
the better advice is wait if you can.
Wait if you can.
If it's not an emergency, wait if you can.
Yeah.
Because the Fed meets again in May. And again, after that, they'll have 4 more meetings through the year. And the absolute prediction is every single time they meet, they're going to raise the rate at least a quarter point. Yeah. I don't think they'll do more than a quarter point because, again, they've learned from 1994s of the world that they don't want to overcorrect. Yeah. But they have to figure out this inflation issue.
Well, there's a balance. I mean, in these articles that we were reading through, it is a little. I was reading one quote that said, "A little pain today will be less pain tomorrow," because sustainability is the name of the game. Yeah, that's why
you don't want long-term 8% inflation, or we will all be like, "Oh my goodness!" I mean, having significant downturns in our lifestyles. And among other things, most student loans out there are at a fixed rate, so
I was just about to bring
that's
that up.
another thing to take a look at.
Yeah, unless you are a private student loan, that one could be a little more tricky. But your federal loan borrowers, they're fixed. So that's good.
And if you're I know some people who are in the market for a car because they just got out of a wreck, or they're doing, like. That's tricky because you're going to pay a premium right now because the used car market, again, a lot of opportunists out there. But if you can, maybe you get a lesser car for the next 2 years and you pay something off cash. Yeah. And then you kind of wait these turbulent waters out and then you can reevaluate. We have to all get a little bit more flexible, I think, in the mix here, where we might have to delay some gratification, some things we've been working for or wanting to do. Because if you don't do that, if you don't practice that discipline now, it's going to cost you at least double if you make the mistake of just having to do something now.
Well, gas prices alone incentivize me to start riding a bike.
Well, I know. Gas prices alone
I got a truck bike.
My next child is driving in a couple years. I'm like, I'm going to start to keep my eye on electric car for that kid because to have one we don't have any electric cars.
No, neither do we.
Because they still, honestly, I love the concept of them. I drive so far sometimes that I don't want to be stranded. I think that's my main fear of getting one. I'm like, I go way past the 250 radius and then what? Mom stuck again. Can you come get me?
I know. I have this I don't want to look for a charging station. I think it's kind of like we're at that age where that the electric cars, it's still weird kind of concept for me to grasp. I know they've been around for a while, but
if you're a metro driver, I totally get it.
Oh, totally.
But if you're a highway driver, no one wants to run out of anything on the highway.
No, that's like I stop and get gas like a half tank.
I know.
So terrible.
We do. We're like the old lady stopping every half tank. On our girls trip because no one wants to run out of gas.
Well, there's nothing in New Mexico either.
Yeah,
so
that was.
I was like, people
she was
live
not
here?
a big fan of New Mexico.
Seriously.
Hopefully, we don't have a lot of listeners from New Mexico.
I mean, not down in your state, but I'm driving through and I'm like, what is here?
I know.
Gas stations, hundreds of miles. What do people do?
I know.
Where do they get food?
I don't know.
I couldn't. Yeah,
we couldn't figure that one out. But. So before we close out, I also want to talk about some opportunities because there's a lot of perils out there. There's a lot of potholes out there, but where are some opportunities? The market is still fluctuating quite a bit. So again, we always talk about dollar cost averaging, put a little bit, the same amount in every single month to take advantage of the fluctuation in the stock market. You will pay a lower per share price over time. That's an opportunity. Second, those of you with some cash in savings accounts, or I still know some people with CDs out there, the bond market, these kind of fixed positions are going to see better rates of return because that's part of the inverse relationship is when interest rates correct, bonds start to improve, CDs start to improve, the little bits you get on your bank balances start to improve. So that's a plus.
Hey, Bob and Marilyn have CDs. Shout out Mom and Dad.
I know.
Bob and Marilyn have their CDs. They've never let those go.
Yep. If you have, a lot of investors out there have bond ladders because they kind of, as bonds mature, they're replaced. And so take a look at your bond ladder. What, maybe you don't. Bond ladder, because they're laddered in, which means you have different bonds maturing at different times at different interest rates. Okay. And so, maybe a lot of investors in the last 12 months, because the bond market has not been doing anything, has not renewed those bonds or gotten new bonds. Now they might want to look at reladdering those so that new bonds can come into the fold, because the interest rates will probably look a lot more favorable as the year goes on. So those are a couple opportunities. The gas price thing, the opportunity there on the investment side is if you hold oil and gas positions now, those positions have done very well. You're paying it at the pump, but you're actually getting more of a return because of the increased demand on the investor side. You don't want to buy at the top. So it's more, take a look at what oil and gas positions you already have, because you've probably made some good money in those. Those that, us that don't and just pay it at the pump, it's sad.
The rest of us
There's
cry.
really nothing much to do. Take a bike or walk or carpool or what have you.
I feel like when I'm gassing up my car right now, I feel like the gas pump yells at me, stop. Like it gets so high, just stop.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get cut off.
Well, and I don't know about you, but I swear every single pump that I have seen.
I know what you're about to say.
Not in just Colorado, because I saw them in New Mexico. I saw them in Arizona.
I see them. Yeah.
Every single pump has a Joe Biden sticker on it.
That says
saying
I
did that.
I know.
I mean, and you can tell like some Democrats have like rubbed it off or tried to rip it off, but there's some remnant of poor Joe at every station I have gone into. And I've been in 10 states in the last 3 weeks, driving all over to Kingdom Come. So sorry, Joe. You get blamed for everything, buddy.
Yeah.
So we will continue this discussion next week.
What are we talking about next week?
Next week, we're going to talk through more of why should you care about your credit score? What are 9 benefits of having a good credit score? Why do you need to care? What do you need to do about it? And how can we help you improve it? Because that will eventually allow you to be less susceptible to interest rate increases. It's all
connected.
It's all connected, and it affects all of us. So, see, I know it's not fun to talk about, but it's important.
No,
so that's why we did that today.
It's just more fun to talk about. Come on, Ryan. Like, you've got me on this. It's not. These are very relevant. They're very applicable topics. I'd rather talk about Augusta National and the Masters and Tiger Woods. I'm just saying.
We can end there, and we'll start next show that.
Well,
you can give us a rundown of how Tiger did.
I will. And Ryan will help me with that. As soon as this show ends, I'm about to look up the PGA app and tell everybody in this room where he sits at. I've been dying to know.
Well, good. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Send it to friends. Share it.
Yep.
We only grow by you. How can people find us? How can people share us?
CoffeeTalkPodcast.com, our website, Instagram. DM us, send us a message, Ryan, hashtag...
Hashtag what's in New Mexico.
Oh, my gosh.
Dead body.
That's if you saw Yellowstone, it's the train station.
I got a couple. Hashtag get flexible and hashtag shrinkflation.
Shrinkflation. I love that one. Yes.
I like that.
You're so good
All
at this.
right.
That was a mic drop. I wish everybody had just seen Ryan do this.
Boom.
He just mic dropped.
He did. And our last platform, our best platform, people can find us.
YouTube.
Subscribe to our channel.
Subscribe.
Our new channel is up. It's running. It's working. Subscribe.
Yes.
And
we want to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us.
Thank you. We are here because of you. So thank you all. Have a great week.
Appreciate
it.
Thanks, everybody.
Discussions in this show should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research Incorporated, a broker-dealer member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors Incorporated, a registered investment advisor. Financial planning services through Lighthouse Financial LLC, a registered investment advisor. Shannon Ross is CEO and managing partner of Lighthouse Financial. Lighthouse and Cambridge are not affiliated.